United Nations Agency on Refugees predict there's about 20 million climate refugees this year. That's right now people fleeing the effects of climate change. I wonder what the candidates here specifically will do in Aberdeen, given that the historic responsibility we've had for being a fossil fuel producer and contributing to that. What specifically will they do, and how will they fight against the terrible rhetoric that's already coming out against migrants and refugees in this election?
Thank you.
Just a question for you.
Guy, you can open this one, please.
God, there's quite a lot we would want to do. So the first thing is tackling making polluters pay, for example, for the things that they've done. One of the things that I had a discussion with the Chamber of Commerce, and they're like, oh yeah, but our emissions are our problem, da da da. No, they have a problem elsewhere. You know, we saw floods in Pakistan that killed thousands of people, and that's our emissions, everyone's emissions around the world that contributed to those deaths. We've seen droughts in the Horn of Africa, so people are now having to move in order to find food. It's already an emergency, and it's not being addressed properly. One of the things we would love to do is abolish the Home Office. For starters, one of the most horrible organisations that anyone ever has to deal with is the Home Office, and we would split up their responsibilities to various other departments. So, for example, part of migration could go to a Ministry of Labour. Other parts of immigration could go to a Ministry of International Development. These plans aren't formulated, but that's the kind of things that we could be doing. When it comes to actually for refugees, we need safe and legal routes. You hear this all the time. It shouldn't take someone having to cross deserts and seas to get here when they should just be able to go to an embassy in a city or a consulate in a city and apply for asylum. That's what we should be looking at. And when it comes to things like the boats, stop the boats we often hear, the only way to stop the boats is to give those safe and legal routes. People do not want to get in a dinghy with 50 other people and risk their lives, especially when they've got their kids and their family members with them. They're doing it out of desperation. If you want to break the gangs, it's very similar to drugs. You need to break the trade, and you do that at source. You don't tackle a problem when it's on your doorstep. You go to the source and tackle it there, and that will reduce the issues that you have. When it comes to the money to pay for a lot of things, for example, if we're going to accept more immigrants, then we need more houses. So that's why we're looking at a wealth tax. So I've got some of the figures here. 1% of households in the UK with 3.4 million and above. I don't think that any of those people exist in this room. I don't think they are anyway. They would get a 1% tax, marginal rate of tax rate of 1%, rising to 5% of those on 5.7 million, and then 10% for those on 18.2 million. Nobody in this room is going to be affected by that, but that could raise £70 billion to help these people as well as ourselves. So that's the kind of things that Scottish Greens are looking to do, and that's why you need to send a message to Westminster. That's why you need to vote for the Scottish Greens, because if you vote for any of the other parties who have done very little on this, with some exceptions, I will admit, then you're going to get more of the same. And we've seen that with Labour, parroting the same rhetoric that Rishi Sunak has, and we need change, and we need real change.
Thanks. Nurul, go on, and then...
Thank you. Yes, so of course our biggest plan to address climate change is to create GB energy, and that will make a big difference. It will make a big difference, and contrary to what Kirsty alluded to earlier, GB Energy will have a stake in organisations by investing in them. The organisation isn't just giving out money with nothing back. It will have a stake in them, and it will have the ability to ensure that sustainable energies are developed and the new ideas like this gentleman here has could be invested in. In terms of the wider impact on immigrants, actually I share a lot of the concerns that Guy has on this. I think immigration has been made into a hot potato, and it's not so much from the Tories about stopping the boats, but they should be concerned about stopping their bets, which is the biggest problem at the moment for them. The boats are the conclusion of a wider problem, and actually we do need safe routes for people who are genuine refugees. But our country, particularly Scotland, and not all parts of the country need the same immigration, but Scotland still needs immigrants. It needs immigrants in skilled jobs, such as in the NHS, such as in engineering where I work, but it also needs other skilled people, such as tradesmen But also, I met a group of Uzbekistani gentlemen about a month ago who were here as fruit pickers. So we need immigrants all the way across the skills spectrum, and we should give them safe ways to come here so that they don't have to use the boats. One of the things that we're also committed to doing is to work with our European colleagues and other colleagues and national border security forces and also police forces to stop these gangs who are selling falsehood and dangerous routes. And that's one of the things we've got to do. These are criminal gangs who are nothing short of the mafia, and they need to be stopped. And we're going to work very hard to make sure that we stop them.
Kirsty?
This is the third Hustings I've been in Aberdeen where the Labour rep doesn't seem to have read their manifesto. The Labour Party's position on immigration is not that different from the Tories' position on immigration, right? The rhetoric's not quite as bad, but you know, they're consistently on everything that I've done, every time that I've been in a radio programme or whatever, they're talking about stopping the boats. And that's what they're focusing on. They're not talking about how wonderful the contribution is that people who've moved to Aberdeen have made to our city. You know, I think it's amazing that so many people move to Aberdeen. We've got the highest proportion of non-UK born citizens outside London. They come first, we come second in that. I think that's fabulous. It's brilliant. We should be a welcoming city. Unfortunately, the immigration rules don't allow us to do that, you know, in the way that we'd like to, right? The immigration rules should be drastically changed. Refugees should be allowed to work, and there should be safe routes for people to come. And it shouldn't just be done on the basis of these are the specific countries that we will allow people to come from, you know, because there are people that suffer persecution in countries that we may not consider that they would suffer persecution in. Specifically on your point around climate justice, we have been asking for the aid budget to go back up, and for us to, you know, at least make the minimum contribution that we should be in terms of aid. We've had a climate justice spokesperson. In Westminster, we've had that role. It's been a person that's been leading. It's been Chris Law that's been leading on it, and generally the Scottish Government has done what it can within its limited budgets to do stuff around climate justice. It has kind of had as much of a focus on that as it can. It's also done a bit of focus on women's empowerment, for example, in countries where women are disenfranchised or excluded from the democratic system. It's done some good support around there. I think we need to do more. I think there's more that we need to do around, you know, even just taking responsibility. I think some of the stuff that Guy said around that is right. We declared a climate emergency in Scotland as early as we could have done. I think that was really important for us to even just get those words out there, because rhetoric does matter as well as the actions mattering. But there's more we could and should do. And some of the Tory lines that I've heard recently around, there's no point in us trying to cut our emissions because China's not drastically cutting theirs, and we've only got whatever percentage it is of global emissions. It doesn't matter what percentage of global emissions that we've got. We've got a percentage of global emissions, therefore we should be trying to reduce that. So there's a huge amount more that we need to do. Part of it's action, part of it's changing the rhetoric, both around refugees and around taking responsibility for climate change.
Thank you.